mention all the kids. I wanted to see a few friends this weekend in Michigan. Just because they have two kids who are older than ours, a little older. His dad was going to take home kitchen set, barbecue set, power. And it's like, I take all this home for starters. So I'm borrowing my dad's car to go up there. And then once we get it home,
I put it in like buckets down, like a little tiny like space between the two. That's already what happened for me. Sorry, but wait a minute.
yeah. Excuse me, what is this? Oh, minutes. Finance committee.
That's the old.
Oh, yeah, we approved these at the council meeting.
Yeah, we did.
Give it to these guys. That's just the minutes we
I was watching the first half and the second half inside and then yeah, we have one of my friends is trying to get from this I feel very privileged. Well, I got a lot of other stuff about college. Yeah, that's really well.
All right, you good?
Yeah, that was way up.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start our special meeting of the City Council. The mayor is unable to be with us today. If we can get a motion for a council
I'll
member
make
to
a
fill
motion
in.
for Eric Strange to be pro tem mayor.
Second, yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Actually, that's yours. I was getting ready to take the wrong one.
All right, so we've got to do this, right?
You do.
Call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone.
Folks, we are here for a special meeting. The issues on the agenda will be the only items that can be discussed. With regard to, let me go to item 2 first. I think the scope of an HR consultant being acquired and an RFP being created to pursue that consultant, the scope thereof was something that was going to be discussed today. That's absolutely something that needs to be discussed today. The item number 1 is the CERS spiking payment that was discussed Monday, and I will state my position on that, and then we can move accordingly. My feeling on that is that that is really the appropriate province of the mayor, and the mayor deals with personnel decisions and things of that nature. I think it's also appropriate if anybody wants to file an ethics complaint against either a public official or an employee, that's an appropriate avenue as well. For council itself to pursue any type of action towards our city manager, Matt Kramer. Really, they've got, in my opinion, they need to launch an investigation under KRS 83A-130. They can do that, and they can make a motion and pass that motion if they so see fit. With that all said, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Before we get started, I noticed that there was no public comment on here. I don't know where that came from. I do think it's important that we hear from the public. I think these issues are important, and your feedback over the last several years, not just this last couple of months is imperative. I know no one was prepared for that, but I can make a motion if someone would second it to allow for short public comment, please, today. I think everybody has said their piece a lot. And please, if you do make public comment, you have to keep it to what's on the agenda today. So can I get a second for that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Is anybody going to say anything? Does anybody want to say anything?
Wait
before
a
we
minute.
vote all
Hey,
over?
Adam,
Yeah.
hang on a minute. All in
Gotta do
favor?
the, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Does anyone want to make public comment before I move this over?
Can I do that?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to make public comment first?
Yeah, we can make public comment first, or how would you guys like to proceed?
You know, I was going to suggest, and we can do it either way, but that we have the discussion on these items and then do it at the end before we go into executive session. But it's,
That's a good point.
I love Eric's point, because
I mean, if it's a benefit to you all, that's fine. If not, you can, if no one else has comments and you want to make one now, I think that's fine as well.
whatever you want to do. Will it still be open if we could comment later? My only reason for saying that is just generally, I come with it well written out and timed and, going by all the rules. But sometimes then during the meeting, something comes up and it's like, if I didn't know that, I would have maybe.
Well, that's my suggestion, is once we have the discussion, if you have some point, maybe some of the things that are, figured out or talked about would answer some of those questions
I
and,
think that's perfect, but if Sharon wants to speak before, as long as it doesn't close the door to someone. That's all right, no, I don't mind.
All right, perfect.
okay, we'll do it at the end then, before we go into executive session. So you all don't have to hang around for that.
Thank you for doing
Mhm.
that. Also, is this being video recorded by the city?
It is being recorded.
Yes.
It is not live, but it will be.
Okay. Thank you, Norman.
Okay, so, so we can open it up for discussion now anyone has comments to begin discussion on the CRS pension spiking discussion. Hard to say. Mouthful.
Well, I'll start. I've got a couple questions. Are there any costs moving forward to the pension system base or associated with the spiking? Or was
I'll
that
I'll
one
explain
time
that,
thing?
and then Linda will jump in if she's got something to add. So
would you
are you
introduce-
talking about the current law?
Would you
Oh, I'm sorry.
introduce Linda too, just for
Yeah,
the people who
this
are...
is Linda Chapman. She's our interim finance director, and she's been helping us out since, I think, May
And
at
could
the
you-
city.
Okay, and could you give us an update too? I know, I think there was, the Kentucky State Police were looking at, were they in
That was for the audit.
part of it? That was, okay. And then we were looking at potentially Dean Dorton on the audit, but maybe
Yep, that's
this
for
as
next
well.
council, that's for the finance committee on Wednesday.
Okay, so my question is if there were any updates you could share today on anything that relates to the spiking stuff, that would be good.
Yeah, so really what we're going to do is just, if council had any additional questions, we've sent out a couple things, so we'll just talk through that, and Linda will be here because she's dealt with spiking as well, as I have as well. Are you talking about just moving forward? Is this a possibility? Is that what
Not
you're?
necessarily a possibility. Are there any costs associated with the spiking that we're here to talk about moving forward? Or
No,
is that
so that's-
one time that
Yeah.
finished that?
Right, yeah, so that payment was it, that was one thing I confirmed right away when we started looking at this. Moving forward, we can't get into a situation like that, it's because the laws have changed to protect really the city and the employees to handle this, because this has been an issue specifically during, 16 to probably 2019, maybe 20. But right now, so what the spiking does is, for hazardous duty specifically, is where the spiking came from. The 20-year hazard duty pension, at least the Tier 1 and 2, are based upon the top 3 years of earnings. So their whole pension check, their monthly pension check is based upon the high 3 years. So what would happen is year 17, those employees would work as much overtime as they could in the past, which would drastically increase their monthly payment for retirement. So what they did is, I don't know if they started sometime between 13 and 18. I mean, there was just a bunch of different laws changes trying to curb that, so employees couldn't do that, because essentially they were padding their retirement, and it was hurting the retirement position for the state. So they made rules that you could only go up to 10% Right, so, and then anything after that was considered spiking. So nowadays, right now, if an employee can have 10% above their standard salary, and if they go over that, the city's not penalized, and the employee doesn't receive any additional retirement benefits because of that extra income. So if that income is from, overtime, then they wouldn't get, they would only get a maximum of 10%. Now, there are some cutouts for like federal grants, for valid promotions, things like that, but I mean, overall, that's what it is. So moving forward, if an employee retires today and their last year, they were 12% over, what happens is whatever amount that they paid over that 10% into the retirement system, because the employees, we pay our piece into our retirement system, and then the city has to pay their part. So what happens now, if it's over 10%, that employee actually gets paid back from KPPA on their portion over 10%. And the reason they do that is they're not going to receive any retirement benefit from that, so they get paid that. The city does not get paid back anything because they've utilized their services for whatever overtime or whatever the salary would be. So that's what this was about, and that's why a lot of cities, they challenged the laws in the beginning, which is why they have changed them over the years. But right now, there's no penalty like this again that you'll be able to do.
So I understand that in 2013, Kentucky had the very first law that dealt with pension spiking. So, and like you said, it changed, I guess, in middle of 2017. During that time, from 2013 to say now, were there any other instances of pension spiking that we don't know about?
Yeah, we couldn't find anything else. There was one entry for, it's like $300, was a spiking from it was actually a crossing guard, was an employee here, but they also work for the school. So that was the other challenge, I've had in the past, where I've had a fireman that worked at two different departments, and they spiked at the other place, which means they spiked at ours, so both places had to pay. But that's I'm sure there's smaller amounts that somewhere we couldn't find any. The KPPA website only listed this, and then that one $300 from a crossing guard that was employed here. But yeah, I don't have any records past that, earlier than that, I guess.
So this all really has to do with overtime, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Can I add to that? Can I ask a question to that?
Yes.
I think it's important if we explain how the state, not just Fort Thomas, but how the state allows the retirement to be calculated, as opposed to taking high three, they took July, and they multiply it by 11 or 12, or that was their, well, it's everybody's, not just, yeah. And so, could you explain that, and then
You want to explain that? Because I haven't.
then also how the city, how we run so lean, it creates an opportunity for additional overtime where other cities have, they have more staff, so the amount of overtime is limited a little bit. So we kind of create, my point is we kind of create a situation for overtime in our city because we do run lean. But if Linda could explain in more detail of why.
I'll address your first question, then I'll leave it to Matt for the second one. Yes, the way the pension system works, depending on what month and fiscal year that you work, so if you retire at the end of July 31st, and it mostly depends on if it's a 3-pay month, a lot of times employees will pick either July 31st or August 31st to retire because one of those 2 months is normally a 3-pay month. So they'll annualize your income either based on the 1 month you worked or the 2 months you worked for the rest of the year. And that's when you get top-heavy on a lot of people that pick up their overtime and work as many overtime shifts as you can in the month of July and or August, depending on how long they stay on, because that gets annualized for the rest of the year as part of their high 3.
The meeting is not being live streamed on YouTube, by the way.
It is not being live streamed. It's uploaded. It'll be uploaded after the meeting. Does that
So
make-
was the 10% that went into effect, I think, in beginning of 2018, I think? Was that to correct that issue?
Yes,
Okay. So,
but it's part of the whole problem, yes.
so the payments that were made, then, I believe, were all related to prior to that date,
Correct,
the pre-2018.
correct.
You know,
A couple things here. It sounds to me like in 2013, the state gave a chance to the city to manage their own force and the funds and the retirement. In 2017, they realized that they needed to cap it because the cities were still allowing people to work overtime even though they were told not to. I don't agree with Jeff as far as like the fact that we're short-staffed and people worked overtime. That's why they got overtime. I think anybody that knows the police and fire know that if they can work overtime for 1 month out of the year and it's multiplied by 11 and it's calculated in the last 3 years retirement, who wouldn't do that? You know what I mean? I do think we work short-staffed and I do think our officers work extra time. But to say it's because we're short-staffed is short-sighted. I mean, everybody knows that you work those and that's how you're paid the rest of the time. So even Linda just said that a lot of people work overtime in that final month because it's 1 month versus 11. So I just think that, I'm glad to hear that they capped it, but, there are a lot of cities that didn't pay this. There were some cities did, some cities that thought they could get away with it. I think in our case, our city didn't pay attention. They thought that the reason that we ignored it for so long is because they thought that other cities were fighting it and we would get the benefit of that fight. And it just didn't happen. And
Can we
lost.
elaborate on that a little bit, at the point Adam made? Because I've reviewed some of the emails that have gone back and forth over the last 10 years, something like that. And I know, we can pay, we're obligated to pay once the state tells us what amount to pay. And there seemed to be some back and forth about what that amount was, and at what time. And I know that in my time on council, we've discussed this on very surface level, and the mayor has kind of given a brief explanation, but can one of you just kind of elaborate on the history there? When the state has asked us to pay, if there's been a discrepancy or a disagreement in that payment, perhaps why, and why it has kind of come to a head?
Nicole's probably the most versed on this whole thing. She has 180 pages we don't have, if anybody's wondering. That we just got last week, and if anybody didn't read the information she has, this also has the letters that we have that were first sent to us, and the one response that I saw returned. So this has been going on for what, over 10 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah, close to
And
it.
by the way, not only has it gone over for 10 years, I just found out about it this year.
So can we talk a little bit about why we incurred such penalty and interest and why it wasn't paid?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I don't have a great answer. I mean, when I've talked to the previous administrator, and their statement was that initially they were advised not to pay it, which a lot of cities were filing lawsuits to challenge some of that. But that's what I don't understand from the gaps of notification. When I was first notified was October, September of '24, and in May, I look back and I was copied on an email, but it didn't have any details. It was just about, hey, there's an invoice at KPPA, which wasn't something that was odd, right? But October, September was when I was first notified that this was a bill to this size and it hasn't been paid, from 17, 18. Besides that, from them looking into this, there were some discrepancies, and that was a lot of the back and forth of the first two lines were wrong, but why we waited this long, I just don't know. I don't know why KPPA never reached out to me. There's a couple letters to the mayor, but I don't know if he ever received them. They weren't in his email. I think I saw a letter to the mayor in May of '24, but I don't know how he received that, if it was mail, I know it wasn't email because I checked. So I don't know why KPPA, at the same time, there were like 8-month gaps between communicating with us. I just don't know why if I was notified. So
So the interest bill that we incurred because of that time lag, I mean, interest is accruing over that time period.
correct.
$108,000. to be
Right.
exact.
So I've reviewed some of the emails that I'm sure others have as well, but Ben has. And, there was some back and forth and discussion of, we don't think we owe this and, reasons. It seems odd to me, and I don't know if you have a comment on it or not, but that if there's a legitimate dispute over something like that, that they would be charging us interest while we're trying to go back and forth. Now, so to me, I don't know if we seems like maybe we were just kicking the can and, I don't know, hoping it would go away.
That's
But-
my assumption, is we were hoping it would go away or we would pay. I mean, they made an
Otherwise,
offer
if it's
to,
legit, I don't think, it seems, and I think that's maybe why we have to have somebody look into it to see if there's anything legitimate that, I don't know if it's even possible to claw, from what I've read, I don't think you can claw back from the state, or it's, very, very difficult. But that would be something in my mind to look into. Did we have a legitimate claim on some discrepancy and why we weren't paying? And, maybe it shouldn't have gone on for,
I thought you
number
negotiated the
of
bill when
years,
you
but-
paid, didn't you, Matt? You negotiated.
yeah,
bills
Joe had
years ago.
negotiated, and I think they knocked off like $7,000. Initially, he had made an offer for the principal, what was owed, and that was rejected by the board. And then they reduced it by, I think, 7,000, and then that is what ultimately was paid.
Yeah, I think a lot of the concern here comes with why we weren't told and how it was paid. So Ben, you chair finance. I remember the meeting that it came up when you talked about the end of the finance meeting, and then Andy brought up this discrepancy in the police and fire amended budget line. Were you aware of this prior to that meeting? Were you aware of the pension spiking and the payment for $300,000?
The 277,000, same number we're talking about?
Yes.
No, and that's something I think we need to hit on in this meeting. I mean, we touched on it a little bit last Monday, but the payment that was made, and we've received some questions from some people in the gallery, I think we need to elaborate a bit on the timing of that and kind of the decision that was made to make that payment, and it wasn't made with council approval, so we weren't aware of it. And I know that you owned up to that, for lack of a better term, last meeting. But I'd just like to know about the thought process, why that happened. Because it does create concern amongst us and amongst me as finance chair, but amongst the community too. And so I'd like to kind of get into that a little bit.
I just think it's very upsetting that, we rely on the administration, the mayor, and and our finance to tell us exactly what's going on. And you're in all these meetings, you don't know. I'm assuming nobody else knew. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. You know what I mean? And then you give a great synopsis of the finance meeting, and then say everything went swimmingly, and then 2 seconds later, Andy's saying, "What about these two line items?" I mean, I'm assuming you're going through line item by line item with Matt or the finance director, and exactly why we're amending these taxes. And there was $1 million discrepancy in the fire and police. You know what I mean? And the minute Andy called it out, the next thing we know, we're having to look into it. But we didn't know at the time, but Matt knew. You know what I mean? And then there was a double entry. I think that's a serious lack of communication, a problem, and something we need to address. Now, I don't disagree with Tim. Matt's employment, the city administrator, is in the purview of the executive branch. But at some point, we have the ability to we have strength, and we represent 17,000 people and their tax dollars. And if you look at the end of the City of Fort Thomas Management Discussions and Analysis for 2024, it says the city council and staff continue to work hard, but there's a line in here I really like. City council strives to never lose sight of the fact that they are public servants spending hard-earned taxpayer dollars. The objective is always to provide the best service as possible in the most economical manner. We're stewards of their money. Finance chair didn't know. Find out it was double entry. He's admitted that he shouldn't have paid, although it had good cause. I can think of a lot of good things, that, you break into a pharmacy because your mother needs pills because she's sick. It still doesn't mean you didn't break the law. So this is serious. So, and then I don't know how many more questions or how much more digging we need to do to find out what happened was wrong. You know what I mean? And if we had paid that, we possibly could have gotten our money back if the cases were lost. Instead, we ignored it. If we paid that, we would have gotten our money back if those cases were won. We could have gone after that money.
Yeah,
Instead, we
and
kicked
just
the can down
to
the road.
elaborate a little bit, as on the finance committee and council as a whole, we rely on all the things that Adam said. But as the finance committee in particular, we rely on an audit every year, and we're getting clean notes every single year until this previous year, and that's a problem.
But that
And-
audit had nothing to do with the amended taxes, Ben.
Well, I'm referring to some of the $1 million discrepancy that you mentioned, the
$1
$322,000,
million
which we'll
was
discuss
in
all
the
that.
amended budget that led to the discovery of this.
Okay, well, please don't interrupt me, Adam, but my point being, I'm trying to paint the picture of kind of, in my mind, there are several factors here at play that led to this, and our objective is to find solutions. And that's, I think, the point of the meeting. And so let's continue with the meeting.
Just to add to that, I would say that finding a solution is obviously what we have to do. But if you don't address a violation, it's going to create disorder. Ignoring a violation encourages, addressing a violation creates order. Ignoring it encourages disorder. We have to do something. You can't just allow things to be done wrongly and then just say, oh, well, we'll fix it.
You know, a lot of good people make bad decisions that cost them things. You know what I mean? Accidents happen, but we have to address those. It's not fun, but it's part of what we got elected to do and part of the decision we made to do when we got elected, when we decided to put our name on that ballot.
And I've heard what everybody has to say, and I'm back to my initial comment that this is either a matter for the mayor to review and discuss, and/or at this point or at some later point, you could launch an investigation under KRS 83A 130. And
As far as I'm concerned, we do have a mayor right now, Eric Strange.
He's the mayor.
So it's
He's
under
the
his
mayor-
purview
he's the mayor
right
to
now.
preside over this
Yes,
meeting.
no, he's a mayor, period. He has all the powers of the mayor.
Well, you and I will disagree.
You guys voted on that at the beginning.
It is, he's just running
He's
the
to
meeting.
preside over the meeting. So I think we either do something, launch an investigation, move on,
We can discuss that in the.
So
which is fine.
there was a question that Linda was going to ask. What question was that?
Yeah, I was going to just chime in on something here. So to make you all aware, which I don't think anybody was aware, when I started researching this back at the June 30, 2023 audit, your previous auditors made an audit adjustment to set up a payable for the pension spiking issue in the amount of $169,000. So there's been a payable on the books since June 30 of 2023 for a portion of this $277,000. Now, why the auditor didn't make you aware that he had made that accrual and put that payable on the books and expensed out of that $277,000, expensed $169,000 of that back in June of 2023 as an audit adjustment. So there had to be some communication between the previous finance director and the auditor at that time for them to put that adjustment on the books. So as a result of that, the payment of $277 this year, reversing out the accrual that was made 2 years ago at the audit, the net expense for this year was basically $108,000. So I just want to make you aware of that because I don't think anybody is aware that there was an audit adjustment made back in June 30 of 2023 for $169,000 of this. Now, why the auditors made an adjustment of $169,000 at that point, I can't tell you. There's no documentation, and the previous auditor has passed away. So I just want to make you aware that this issue was previously discussed between the prior finance director and the auditor, and there wasn't a payable put on the books for this pension spiking issue.
We're 169,000.
169,000.
277 was spent, so 107
Right.
was spent right now.
108 was spent in this current year.
Well, and that brings up a really good point. I mean, you guys, you're on Finance Committee, we were all on that in 2023 during that time. I'll go back and review. Were you not? Okay. Well, I'll go back and review, and anybody else, Jeff might have been on. I don't believe that we were made aware of that $169,000, and that's a problem in and of itself. We can't answer why that happened. We're never going to know, but that's a problem. And I think we all agree that, those types of problems, they cannot happen moving forward. It's not transparent. It doesn't allow us to do our job from an oversight standpoint of the finances of the city.
Linda, are you aware of, in your work at Florence and other places, of any situation where if we got someone to look into this, someone who has, expert knowledge in it, that we would potentially be able to get some of those, on the interest side, some of those funds back, or, I don't know the words claw back or whatever it might be, there, because, for the taxpayers here, because essentially what happens is we pay out an inflated amount, and that goes on perpetuated throughout the state, and the liabilities, the pension liabilities become, the fund itself is underfunded.
Correct.
And they go get that money from
Exactly.
the city, but the pensioners, if that's the correct term, continue with their inflated payments that were calculated. So if essentially those funds are transferred from the city residents to the state to cover those inflated amounts that are ongoing.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm interested in, part of what I'm interested in is there a pathway to get some of that back in determining who was, responsible?
We can certainly have a conversation with the pension board, but Joe did write a letter in December of 2024 asking to try to negotiate the amount down. And like Matt said, the only thing they did was give on about $7,000 of the penalty and interest. And it came down to like, no, this is as low as we're going to go, is the $277,000. So my guess is the problem is the pension is severely underfunded and they're out to get whatever they can get and they're not going to refund any additional monies.
Yeah, so there isn't any precedent that you're aware of
No.
in doing that across the state?
No.
Yeah, I think that's something we should think about more. There's always sort of a cost benefit, right? What would it cost to have someone look into it? And what will we likely, if anything, get out of it
Do we
in
know
terms
if
of recovering funds?
Do we know if there's any pending lawsuits or appeals that could affect this across the state?
To the best of my knowledge, that's all been wrapped up. Now, I will check in to make sure, but I don't think there are any pending lawsuits at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 17, 18 bill.
Yeah, I got you.
I think the last one was Villa Hills, wasn't it?
There's a park.
I think so.
There's a few.
I was entered twice.
From best I can tell, going through the general ledger, that happened at a point in time when Joe was off sick and he was working partially from home. Joe, like I said, sent in a letter in December of 2024 to negotiate the payment down. It wasn't negotiated down. I believe he went ahead and told the clerk that normally posts the monthly pension payment, because you have to do it through their portal. You can't just do it through the bank as an ACH, you have to do it through the CERS portal. Told her to make the payment, and I think between Joe working from home because of his illness and the clerk normally doing what she does, as soon as she makes a payment, she makes a journal entry. There was that one person's here, and there was a lack of communication. And then once it,
5 weeks later, what I thought was, I don't, I said this from the very beginning, Joe's a nice guy. You turn your microphone. Oh, sorry. Joe's a nice guy. I don't believe he was a thief, but, 2 payments, 2 entries 5 weeks later. What bothered me most about that was a few things, but was the username was the same. So I think if we're going to move forward with a system that's supposed to track all our accounting software, no one should be using somebody else's username. And according to the 2 deposits I saw, they were both Joe's username. And I'm just want that out loud to make sure that everybody knows that if we're in accounting software and we're trying to clean this up, I think it's important to know who is making the entries and why, so that when people ask questions, there's no doubt. You know what I mean? I really do like Joe. I believe in Joe, and unfortunately, he was he was a little bit more of a scapegoat than I think he needed to be, because I think the city administration and executive branch were responsible for this as well. But I just think that's important moving forward.
well, I just want to address that too. So the way the software works is that, like right now, I commit every journal entry because I want to see what's going on. I want to see what journal entry is being made, and I don't want somebody else committing it unless I see it. So as soon as I commit it, it looks like I did it, okay? Because I'm the one who hit the final step. It's my responsibility, okay? I went ahead and approved it. So if the clerk went ahead and made the journal entry, Joe went ahead and made the journal entry, Joe would have committed both entries, so that's why it would show up as him making both entries. Now, when obviously somebody wasn't paying attention when that second journal entry was committed, okay? So, but there is an audit trail, and if you wanted anybody that makes a journal entry to be able to commit their own journal entry, it would show up under their name. But to me, the way I've always handled the process is I want to see it first before it's committed. I want to know what's going through the system, and I want to know what journal entry somebody made. So, if that's, I just wanted to let you know.
I like that control.
Okay, just wanted to let you know.
That's what it should be, yep.
Yep.
Well, I think in the audit report too, a lot of the issues arose because of lack of internal controls that we didn't have in place. I think if that's a fair characterization. And I've asked that Linda, as she goes through, helping us kind of move forward with the new system, to put those things in place so that going forward, we don't have the same issues, with lack of internal control. So,
We all learn from our mistakes. We tried to. It doesn't seem like we have for a while here, but hopefully with us and a little bit of.
well, yeah, so that's more of a looking forward comment than looking back, right? But, yeah, we want to make sure with the new system that, you know, it's only as good as the way we use it, and so that we have those things in place going forward.
Absolutely.
Well documented.
Any other questions?
No, I would like to make a comment about the last statement Tim made about the investigation, and if that's the way that this group wants to go, I am, you know, well, I'll follow suit, but I do want to point out that the reason we were able to find these things over the last couple of years is because of Matt's work that he's put into to help us find this stuff. So we're in this situation. It's unfortunate. It happened prior to Matt and a little bit of spillover with Matt, but the reason that we found it and are able to move forward, the reason Linda's here, the reason we have a new auditor is because Matt was able to find the issues and bring them forth. So just wanted to make that comment.
I'd like to say we're in this situation because Matt didn't inform us of the information he had, period. And that's the problem. Whether he found it or not, he still needs to inform us to make the payment. Not saying Matt's a bad guy, but that's a fact.
So do you want to move forward with an audit on that
I
aspect?
think we should go into because I think part of our KRS discussion here when we go to executive session is all about all of this.
You know, Mike, it's better if you think of criminal activity, you got a grand jury that meets every Thursday. Mr. Blau or anyone else that thinks there might be criminal activity, they can go down there and appear before the Commonwealth Attorney and talk about that, right, Tim?
Absolutely.
And then another issue, guys.
Fred, if you don't mind,
We're going
we got to reserve a public comment at some point.
But I mean, if that's an issue that can come up, you all can go down before the grand jury, or anyone in this crowd can.
It's really a little different than that, but I understand what you're saying.
Does anybody have any other CRS questions before we move on?
Are you going to open up for comment on this topic?
Well, are you going to deal with issue number 2?
I think we
and then
deal
have
with
public comment?
issue number 2, and then after that, before we go into executive session, we'll have the public comment,
That makes the most sense to get it all out.
rather than trying to do it in two broken up pieces. So yeah, if there are any further comments on this right now from council, then we'll move to topic number 2.
Which is the scope of an HR consultant, if you were to create an RFP to acquire a part-time HR consultant or something of that nature.
Do we have a list of the ones that are specific for like cities? Because I've talked to friends that are in HR, and I know that there's third party more for corporations, but it's not specific to cities.
Yeah, I've received a list, and I have got a couple add-ons since then. So I don't know if they're, just by looking at them at the moment, I don't know if they're any specific to cities. A lot of these seem like corporate, but I'm sure there's a lot of overlap, and I don't think there'll be a whole lot of difference, because even the SHRM certification is it's a corporate certification, but a lot of government HRs also obtain that. So I think there's a lot of similarities, and it's just based upon the state laws, but also the policy, the handbook. So I think it's going to correlate fine when we do reach out to get different services that we're looking for.
And I think it's worth mentioning, too, I really want to involve Linda in this while we have her at our disposal as far as her advice and guidance on the HR firm or firms that we choose. In Linda's past, she was a finance director for the city of Florence, but also she ran the HR department for decades, and so I reckon that you have a very good understanding of what types of firms are appropriate and qualified to handle city government, which is very different than, private practice.
Yeah, and then we also had a consultant firm that we had as a backup, so that if there was any issues or whatever, questions, or we got into a sticky situation, we would call them. Honestly, on their staff, they have a multitude of people that handle various issues and different things, but like Matt just said, as long as you have your SHRM qualifications, some aspects of HR, no matter if you're city, corporate, nonprofit, it's all the same.
Okay.
Linda, you are one impressive human being. Every day I think how lucky we are.
Ask her how many people they had to hire when she left. Seriously.
Did it take an army to fill those shoes?
They did
You're so humble.
So would your recommendation, based on your background and experience with it, that we would kind of, have an initial review of a couple of these different firms, have several of them in to discuss, what they provide, how it fits with what we do, what the cost is, and all of those things? I mean, I'm sure they offer, à la carte everything. We don't need it all, but figure that out and then use that process to eventually
Yeah,
determine.
absolutely. You want to tailor your RFP to specific services that you're looking for on either a monthly, annual basis, whatever it is that you're looking for to provide complementary services to whoever's doing HR in-house right now. And then, bring in a couple of the firms based on price and based on just, it doesn't even have to be based on price, just reputation. You can research them online and get some pretty good ideas of who's good and who's not, and bring them in and go through the interview process just like you would do any RFP.
Right, and would you have the same firm do the day-to-day sort of stuff that comes up versus the consulting that when there's a larger issue, or they tend to be separate?
No, I would have one
Both,
company
the
do
same.
both, so everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
With,
Fair strange here. Earlier, I remember a few months ago when we were discussing this, and I don't know if it was public, if it was a conversation, but we use ADP as a payroll company now, right? So they obviously offer some of the services, right? So I do remember him mentioning him maybe it's something we tie into some services they already do. Obviously, it's a sale, right? So your expertise is very well needed in this particular instance, exactly what we can hone down and need. So I think they should be.
There's ADP, a close competitor of ADP is Paychex. In town, we've got Paycor.
Paychecks, yes.
Yeah.
Several
ADP
months
just
ago,
bought them.
Paychecks bought
Oh,
Paycor.
okay.
Paid.
Paychecks bought Paycor.
Well, good for paychecks.
with the new
They still operate as two separate
finance
companies,
director?
but it's all under Paychecks now.
That makes it easy. It'll be one call then instead of two.
Exactly.
But I think I'm not sure if you're familiar with Strategic HR through Clark Schaefer.
Yes.
Might be another one to contact.
Yep.
And if you have any other recommendations that, if we screen.
Yeah, we used
5 or
Employer
so of those.
Resources out of Cincinnati, and they were bought out right before I left. They merged with a company
Clark
up
Schaefer.
in, yeah.
I think it would.
And then I think there was another company in Michigan.
You look into as many as possible and then thin it out to 3 to 5 for us to review. I think with your recommendations would satisfy me.
I like that.
With the new finance director position, do they have any HR roles in their job description, or is that going to be completely separate?
Yeah, it'll be, myself, the finance director, and then one of the finance clerks. We handle the benefits side for sure, so, yeah.
Right
I mean,
now,
the
the HR
fi-
though, I thought was you and Mayor Haas.
Yeah, but I mean, the finance director is also.
Or benefits.
Yeah, they handle, we handle more of the higher level decisions since we are self-funded, we'll handle that.
Is it
but-
worth including that in the bid with the RFP to just have it completely separate for now until this is all cleaned up and we have a new?
I mean, we can set it up just to get pricing on all of it and then decide to do the whole package or some, so.
I
yeah.
just feel like
mean,
if we don't have someone in that position, I'd rather them clean it up, have it separate. I'd like to see pricing on that, I guess. Okay.
Okay.
Also, as part of the actual scope and not who we're picking, will there be an initial assessment, kind of taking the temperature of all the employees?
That's what I'd like, because I mean, a lot of these will do employee surveys and interviews, and I think that's appropriate right now. Yep.
Employee surveys prior to?
I'm sorry?
You said they would do employee surveys prior to hiring them on?
No,
Yeah,
as a part of the package.
Onboarding.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I
Yep.
was just wanted to make sure, because I don't think legally they would be able to do that. If
No, no, that'll be after we contract with him. Anything else on that? So what we'll do, I'll work with Linda, and this will be, I think, more of I mean, we don't need to do like a state RFP, just so council's aware. It's more of an RFQ, just for soliciting qualifications and pricing. So this is one that we can still post on our website, but I think it's appropriate to send out to the groups. I think I have about 8 right now, and then we'll look at more. But just to send this out as kind of a request for quotes and everything for each group that we have. Does everybody understand that? as opposed to going through the, putting it in the paper and stuff. I think sending it out individually is more effective, since we don't need to.
Some specific organizations, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the same. So, I mean, we'll still make up a RFP, but we don't need to go through the state, because I don't think that benefits anybody. I think sending it out to targeted groups that we have, we've researched. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I missed part of that conversation. Were we planning on having them in for that process? Or
No, so what we'll do is we'll create a list, and I'll share that with council who we're going to send out to. I'll create the kind of the RFP, what we're looking for, we're getting pricing on. It'll be the same one that we'll send out to all the groups. And then once we get all their proposals back, then we can take a look at them and narrow it down to 3 or 5, and then we can interview or however.
Yeah, that's what I said. Once we
Move
get to
forward.
that point, maybe, would it be appropriate for, maybe a law labor license meeting to have, 2 or 3 in that kind of make the final cut?
Sure.
So we can ask questions and,
Should we set a deadline for the return from them?
We will. Once it's created, and I'll share it with council, make sure you guys, just to make sure the scope is what we want. I don't want to send it out and then somebody's say that they wanted to add something. So I think once we do that, and generally I'll give them a 2-week. You don't want to give them too long, but I think 2 weeks is probably appropriate to give them to respond to the RFQ.
I would
Is that-
assume so. These are major companies who do this all the time. They should be able to understand our needs at our level when we give them the information.
I mean, if you're hearing anything different than that, can you let us know? Because I would like to do this, at some point next month.
Yeah, I agree.
Any further discussion
Okay.
on the HR topic? All right, you want to move to the...
At this point, we'll move on to public discussion. Apologize, I always forget this. The discussions will be limited specifically to the items that are on the agenda, that being the spiking payment and the scope of the HR that was just discussed.
Can I just grab a microphone back here?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, you got it.
We are going to limit the time limit will be 3 minutes because we've got a very specific set of items to be discussed, but we'll open it up to discussion now.
And is it true then that the comments only pertain to what's on the agenda, correct?
Absolutely.
Because it's a special meeting.
Correct. Thank
We
you.
need to ask for a little, or they can just say it.
These are taken not from the agenda, but from comments that I heard here tonight. In one comment, it was, I think, from you, Eric, I'm not 100% sure. Were we waiting for other cities to win these lawsuits before hoping that we could benefit from? Okay. My question is, if we wanted to do that, we needed to be on that lawsuit. If we were a plaintiff, they would have frozen. Maybe it was you who said, wouldn't they have frozen the interest at that point? But if we just sit back and don't do anything, wait for all the other cities to take the lumps, they're not going to backtrack that. Okay,
Joan, if
next.
I could just answer that very quickly. And
Really
this
quickly, because my
isn't
time is
appa-
ticking.
Good, you're right, go ahead.
Okay.
Great point.
Okay, in talking with my attorney, and I'm very uncomfortable because when I speak each month, he approves every word that I said. Tells me if I've crossed a line, tell me if I'm leaning one way or another. He said, on the one that I spoke last week, he said, you cannot let this go away. You cannot just say, well, we learned our lesson, we're going to do better. He said, do not let it go. You've got to go back, find the person or persons responsible. They must have consequences and admit that they did it. It can't just start over from here. He cautioned me then, I've cautioned it in a couple different letters. Another thing, onto the HR part, I know that Paycor has like an HR suite of items that they offer. If we're already paying for that through our payroll, be it ADP or Paycor or now Paychecks, I think if we've already got it, why haven't we been using it? We also, talking about the RFP, why is that not already written? It's been 9 days. Sarah Cameron, who's very qualified, talented, brilliant, said, I do these all the time, I'll be glad to work on it with you. Have they taken advantage? If so, I can't imagine 9 days after how critical this is, the RFP is not out there. And the RFP should not be how much you're going to charge. because that is the tiniest piece of the puzzle. These are problems that are big. We've lost $322,000 that's being written off. In my opinion, starting balance for a forensic auditor, for an HR person, just to investigate, we've got $322,000 that we don't have to account for. If it hasn't been accounted for in the past, why are we now deciding every penny counts? Didn't count for pretty many pennies to get up to $322,000. I think that the RFP should have already been out and been submitted to as many people as we can, and not just say, what's the pricing, what have you done in the past, give me your resume. We have specific needs. The RFP should be, we're looking for this, not show us your blanket marketing program to say, we've done this, 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 here, here, and here. That might not be what we need. We need to say, we need this. That's what an RFP is. Let them price accordingly. Price is the tiniest thing. Look at our streets and our roads. Look at the roads that are repaved, the side streets. You know, pipes are being, concreted over and blacktopped over. People who had drains no longer have drains. We probably saved a few dollars. It's bad for the residents. It's bad for the city because they're having damage in their yards and in their houses. Pricing isn't the only thing. It's a puzzle piece. But if you just go for the cheapest, you're sure not going for the best. I don't think going for the most expensive means going for the best either. It's a puzzle piece. But the only thing I heard tonight is we're going to get their prices. That was loud and clear. I think my time is up.
Good morning, Sharon McKnight, 62 Miller Lane. I'm going to respectfully submit Tiffany Huber's letter to be put in the minutes. I won't read it because it's just general, but I do have a few questions. And I did give a copy to all the council members, so thank you all for your time. My questions are for Linda Chapman. First of all, thank you for all that you've done for our city with our finances, so thank you. And hopefully you can answer this question. During the June 2nd public hearing on the budget, council member Adam Blau and Andy Ellison brought up the amount of $773,000 of a pension spiking issue, and they were going to have it investigated. Now we're at the amount of $277,000. Can you explain to me how much the city owes the pension?
The only figure I've ever dealt with is the $277,000.
So you never heard of the $773,000 amount?
No, ma'am.
That they brought up?
Not in regards to any pension spiking, no.
Okay.
Just to add, since I was
Thank
the
you.
one that caught it, the $773,000 was the combination of the police and fire pension above what was on the previous year's budget.
Yes.
So it's not going to directly, it's not going to reflect the exact 277 that was actually owed. If that makes sense. Because first of all, the 2 years of pension, the actual liabilities are going to be different. Does that make sense?
No, not really. What's the $773,000? That's the difference that was carried over from the previous year to the amended amount?
I wouldn't say it was carried over. I would say that.
Or added?
Well, I would just say it was above. So it's two different numbers. So you have the budget from the previous year, and that's, when I'm looking at a new budget or an amended budget, I'm looking at all the line items from the previous couple years and comparing it to what is put in front of me to find discrepancies. Not that, it doesn't do you a lot of good if the past ones are wrong as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But when I came on here, that's the only spot that I could start looking. So that $773,000 that I said was the difference between what was on the budget the year before, and it's the combination of the police.
Yes, I do understand that.
And that's the difference between what was on the amended budget.
Yes.
So it's not going to directly reflect the 277 that was the actual number.
Okay, so that's the amount that was just lumped in that extra amount, correct? Is that what you're saying? The $277,000 on the pensions?
Would have been
Part of that.
part of that, correct.
Both entries would have been a part.
Okay, so do you have the line items of this other stuff that made it jump up to $773,000?
Well, that would have, I'm assuming that would have been the fact that it was entered twice. Is that correct?
But that still doesn't add up, so.
I think Matt explained it, and it does make sense, is that we gave the police officers a pay increase and changed their form of payment, so that then there was, explain that a little better than me, Matt, there on that one, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was a
We
previous
yeah, I don't-
budget amendment during the year that was a part of that 700 and something. I don't remember, I've got the
But
details.
it had to do with their pensions and everything else
Right.
actually going up because of their pay
Because of
increase
that.
that previous year, because that happened in the middle of a budget cycle, right? So
Yep.
the 277, so 544 was in there, and then 277 came out, and the rest of it is from what we were explained. I have not seen the line items.
Oh, okay, so you haven't seen it. That's my next question. You guys.
No, I
yes.
sent the breakdown to council, I just don't have it.
Oh, you got the
Yeah, because
breakdown,
when
but
we
we
talked about
didn't?
it, I had the breakdown, but I forget what it is now.
Okay, because you voted on having this investigated and have a 60-day deadline. We're almost 3 months past that. When is the public getting to see all this? Don't you think we're entitled to see this? I'm sitting here and I attend these meetings, I watch the meetings. Why have we not seen any update result on this?
On which
On,
thing are you talking about?
on the investigation you guys voted on the 2nd of June to look into the pension spiking issue. We haven't seen any update, even at the Finance Committee meetings. No one's giving us an update on this investigation that you asked for. Can anybody answer this?
Nicole gave a great update. That's what I think.
Well, I mean,
If anybody needs any
you
advice.
guys can do this. You're a fellow community member, just like she is.
I know, I laugh and jest, I'm as upset as you
I
are.
mean, it's
but
a lot of work and a lot of money.
We keep asking, we keep reaching out, and we keep.
I've given 2 updates to council on it, and then
Can you
this is
post it
the,
on the website? Because you can't share PDFs. Yeah, I mean, it's nowhere to be found. Oh, well, we were left hanging once again. So,
Those updates were in open council meetings, right?
no,
They not?
I mean, one of the last ones were, I'm pretty sure.
no, they were not. Or I wouldn't be up here asking Tim. I wouldn't do that and waste your time. Also, I guess this would be for, okay, so that's the results for that. Okay, so what is the total amount we owe for the pension spiking, Linda? What is that we owe?
It's $277,000 that's already been paid.
That's it, and that's it. They're not going to come after us
Yes,
again?
ma'am.
Okay,
As far as I'm aware, and as far as the documentation I've seen.
Okay.
The 277 was the final payment that the SERS board agreed upon.
And KPPA
Okay. Thank you.
stated that in an email, that's it.
And also, this is for Linda. The $322,000 amount, do you think that is unaccounted for, that this would be a good thing to bring in the state auditor's office to go back and look back and see where it went without costing the taxpayers any more money?
Tim, can I address it since it's not really part of the agenda?
I need the clear answer.
I would really like you to, but it is beyond the scope of the agenda. I think I know.
It's our finances, it's our finances, Tim.
But,
I'm not getting answers from anybody.
This will be part of the discussion at the Finance Committee meeting, am I?
Next Wednesday.
Okay.
yeah. and-
Yeah, we have asked the state auditor
This is following the
about
law,
it, so.
which is what you're asking
yes.
us to
But
do,
this
right?
is-
So we are following the
Okay.
statute today for how we're holding our meetings, so I think it's prudent that we
come out
continue to.
at the
Yeah.
Pension spiking is on the agenda,
Yes.
that's a very good point, so.
Yeah, but not the 322.
Yeah, I'm-
No, not the 320, no, did you ask about the
Let's
320?
not relate to
audit.
pension
And the
spiking.
two- I
All
mean,
right,
it's-
folks, hey, I'm uncomfortable as council going into that. I think it is
Okay,
beyond the
that's
scope
fine.
of our agenda. It will be discussed at the Finance Committee
Can you
meeting.
address it then, because I won't be able to make it?
Yes.
I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, Sharon, just so you know, that meeting's next Wednesday. We will have Linda there. We're also going to have our auditor there, and that's
Yes.
that's at the tip top of the list. So we're going to get into that in detail.
Hey, and I want to thank you all for allowing public commenting on this. This means the world. It's our city, so let's all work together and get it straightened out. So thank you so much. Thank you, Linda.
Hi, Nicola. It's 205 Highland. I was not planning to speak, but I'm going to roll with it. So going back to the pension spiking, specifically, most of my questions are for Ms. Chapman, so thank you.